people of the world. Dallas Mavericks in 7. It's alive. It's looking good. It's going to happen. I don't know what you want from me. Maybe it's me trying to make up for my earlier pick. Maybe it's me just being optimistic. Maybe it's me just being hopeful that yes, you can overcome. Yes, there are avenues for success even after you completely drop 3 games, two of which were 100% winnable, and the first one being one that I mean, yeah, kind of gave up after the first quarter. But kidding aside, when you look at that performance last night, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Maybe it's me being overly hopeful. Maybe it's me being overly optimistic. Maybe it's me just trying to compensate for what will end up looking like a horrible pick shortly. I don't know. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm still a believer. Mavs in 7. I even saw some saying Mavs in 6. Love that enthusiasm. Keep that up. Where can I go to you if I'm ever feeling down in life? But first, let's talk about Sir Charles Barkley. So he announced that he will be retiring after next year, and that he will no longer that he just wants to stay with TNT TNT Turner Sports. I'll admit, right? Um, but that he basically he'll retire. He'll retire after this. He's not looking to extend his broadcasting days after the upcoming season, and he's not looking to run the show back in any way, shape, or form after this. And that's almost to be expected. That first of all, he has come out and said so much. He went so far as to say that he really is not interested in working for too much longer. Uh, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, and this is an interview that was a while ago. I want to say a year and a half, 2 years ago. So pardon me if I don't have it exactly down pat, but more or less he said, and again, this is a rough paraphrase, but he more or less said, if I am unable to retire, if I can't comfortably move on after all the money that I've been making, then I deserve to be broke. I'm an idiot. Yeah, again, really rough paraphrase. But he said this a while ago, and this is holding true. It makes sense for everything we know about Charles Barkley. He enjoys talking about the NBA. He enjoys working, but for him, it's time. And say what you want, say what you will about um, how you view that profession. There's something to just being needing to be present, and he went straight into broadcasting after being a player. Right? He's paid his dues. If he feels like it's time, if he feels like I've done this for long enough, I just want to go and golf and work on my swing, then fine. I don't have a problem with it. And of course, everyone is outraged. Maybe outrage is too strong. Of course, everyone is sad because they want to see Charles Barkley. He's arguably one of the more entertaining people on any network. Even in those moments where it's something that is not quite thought out, or something that's reckless, that's partly why you tune into him. And do some people find that annoying? Fine, but largely it's because we get his completely unfiltered opinion, because we get to hear someone who has done it before and who is definitely knowledgeable, at least in terms of base knowledge of the sport. This is why people tune into him, and how he interacts with Shaq and Kenny. So I'll definitely miss hearing his opinions and hearing his takes. however informed. I mean, you have to remember the time when he and the times he openly admitted, yeah, I don't really watch the games, you know. You have to love that. You have to love that. Everyone would love to be able to go to the boss and say, yeah, I'm just not that interested in the job, but I'm gonna kind of show up and half do it, and you're gonna pay me for it. So you have to almost respect that. But either way, the point stands, right? He'll be missed. And this will be seen as something of the glory days, not only of the show, but I forget who it was now. It was I can't remember. I don't even remember if it was a current NBA player or a former NBA player. I think it was Will Compton, if I'm being totally honest with you. But I'm pretty sure it was, now that I'm thinking out loud. But either way, I'm going to roughly say that this was Will Compton, but he said that the, that Charles Barkley will be one of the guys where he tells his kids, I'm butchering quotes today, so I would apologize, but I don't think anyone tunes in to hear someone read a quote necessarily verbatim. But the gist of what he's saying is like, this is the good old days. Hey, you should have seen when when TV media was good. You should have seen the good old days when Charles Barkley was on the air. And I think that's largely how most people will feel. That's how most people will take the passing. So will there be sadness? Will there be borderline? Ah, come on. Why are you leaving so soon? Yes, of course. But he's been doing this for a long time. He's made it very clear and he's openly joked about how he doesn't want to work forever. So if you haven't been following along or if you haven't been paying attention, I wouldn't even call it in between the lines. He's just outright said that he doesn't want to work for too long. He's outright said, nah, I'm good. I don't want to. I don't want to just be an old head on TV. He wants to just enjoy the rest of his life. Fine. What now? Here's what I hope this opens up. I hope this opens up more opportunities where he just does a guest appearance here and there on podcasts. That's what I mostly hope for because he is right. He's confined to some of the limits on on TNT, even though he happily crosses the line, but he still catches himself. But in the podcast world, in the podcast world, depending on the host, they either edit it out or they just leave it in, and you get an even little more unfiltered version of Charles Barkley. So not all is lost. There is still room for hope in the world of social media and Charles Barkley, and I think he enjoys that way more anyway. So that's something to continue to look forward. But moving on. Mavs in 7. Is it for real? Is it going to happen? Here's what we saw last night. And this doesn't contradict anything that I've said up to this point. It truly doesn't. The Boston Celtics are the best overall team, top to bottom, in terms of how they're constructed. But the Dallas Mavericks on any given night can be the best, and they are a team that has the most upside of any in the NBA. So is that a contradiction? No, absolutely not. These are two teams that are good, but the way I'm viewing things, Dallas they have that lip, they have that extra gear where when things are clicking, you could have the '04 Pistons out there. And there's nothing stopping it. So for all of the noise of Boston is heading into game 4 last night, for all the noise of Boston's controlling the series, Boston is by far the better team, and this is why Boston. The Mavs have an overall series lead in terms of just straight up points. And for a lot of quarters, it's either been within a possession or two, or Dallas has outright won the quarters. Really, what's separating Boston in this series was the first quarter of game 1 and the third quarter of game 3. And that came to a really hot shooting performance. Now, part of that is the Dallas defense more or less is daring Boston to shoot. More or less is saying, well, all right, you want to live and die by the 3? More times than not, you'll die. Now, through 3 games, Boston has out executed, but it needs to be said, for the most part, though, Dallas is doing just fine defensively. It's the offense that has struggled to get going. And now we see the recipe for success, and we see this game plan hasn't changed in terms of it'll be Doncic getting the vast majority of possessions, the vast majority of looks, and Kyrie Irving will count it on to be spectacular in moments and spurts. And the role players, everyone else on the floor is there for spacing, and or they have to take full advantage of their limited looks, of their limited touches. So this is not the way that they do get touches, they being the other players, is off of penetration from Doncic or Irving. And then if the Celtics crowd the rim, then those kick out opportunities are there. And then, swinging depending on how the defense closes out, etc. But what last night showed is that if you truly go duo for duo, Doncic, Irving, Tatum, Brown, Dallas definitely has the better duo. Now, that duo has more help. Mainly, I would say Drew Holiday, but also Porzingis when he's available, when he's on the court. Al Horford in his role, his contributions can't be overlooked. But usually it's the stars who elevate their level of play and who elevate the play of others, and they get everyone else going. And they're the ones that lead their team to a championship. This would be the first time that I would view it to be the case since the Detroit Pistons, their championship. And we all know that's because that was one of the great defenses of all time. How are the Celtics this good? They're the most balanced team. And they have 2 players on any given night who can step up and give you that needed star production. But there's the history. And I don't think anyone's going to overreact to a 1-game loss. Except here, we're we said Dallas in 7, and we're gonna die on that hill. That's fine. But if Boston drops game 5, that self-doubt, I don't care what they say at the podium, that self-doubt is going to 100% creep in. That feeling of, oh shoot, here we go again. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some of the others, quote unquote. And let's go ahead and talk too about what we saw yesterday in terms of what to possibly look forward to in a game 5, because we go to Boston, sure, fine. And the Boston Celtics, after the first quarter, they just looked deflated. I mean, that was a rough second quarter, and then going to the halftime, if they didn't have a hell of a massive run and advantage, I was okay with Joe Mazzulla, waving the white flag by the fourth quarter. I was. It just there wasn't, and the report of Porzingis being available and him not playing, great choice, great decision. That wasn't worth it. He was going to play spot minutes and/or a specific situation anyway. But once the game unfolded the way that it did, yes, sit him. He has a torn whatever it is. I'm not going to pretend to know or even try to look it up and try to pronounce it. He has a torn whatever. Typically, when I hear a torn anything, I say, that's probably going to be a bit." But hey, he wants to. His quote is saying, I'm gonna I'm gonna die out there." Again, I'm butchering quotes today, but that's not the point. He said that he says that he'd rather die out there than miss. Well, maybe he should miss the game. That's just me. But anyway, that's beside the point. I've been an advocate of a coach feeling the temperature of his team. All right, there are times when a coach should keep the starters out there until, say, the final 2-3 minutes, and there are times where you feel the temperature of your team, and it is the right decision to pull your starters. It's a case by case basis. I don't have a golden rule for that. It depends. Yesterday I was okay with Joe Mazzulla waving the white flag, and we got to see others get minutes normally wouldn't. So first on the and so how and the reason why I'm largely okay with it at times is because I think it's so invaluable, particularly if another player goes down. It can be so invaluable for someone to get runtime in actual game time minutes in a game that actually matters. I think even if it is reserves against reserves, that can be so invaluable. So I say all that to say Sam Hauser got himself in a little bit of a rhythm, particularly in that fourth quarter. But regardless, he's someone who has been keeping the Boston bench in games. Oh, through his hustle plays, not necessarily scoring, but him finishing 4 of 6 from 3 can't hurt. You know who else I want to see a little more of is Xavier Tillman. I don't know why he's particularly if you're not playing Porzingis anyway. I don't understand why Xavier Tillman is not getting a larger run of play. Pardon me. I mean, every time he touches the floor, he's doing great things, and he's doing plays that are just desperately needed. So I I for the record, I get it. I 100% get it. I understand if he's not playing because you need to play Porzingis. And again, his cap has to be 20 minutes for right now. It has to be if he does come back. We said that before game 1. He literally played 22 minutes and we see what happened. So particularly if you can't play Porzingis, and or he's just not able to go for game 5, I want to see more Xavier Tillman. He's doing well defensively, and he's doing some really good stuff on the offensive end. Again, kind of that hustle play thing. So I don't understand why Xavier Tillman isn't getting a longer run of play. One other player on the Celtics side, and then we'll bounce back to the Mavericks. O'Shea Brissett. Not necessarily impressive in terms of wow, his numbers really jump out, but he was making the right plays. He looked confident. Another right, he could either be a smaller front court player or a larger backcourt player. Either way, he's someone who I think, if needed, could see increased minutes, particularly if game 5 ends up unfolding the way game 4 does. He could be someone to provide a spark, give a different look. I really liked what I saw from O'Shea Brissett last night. Now, on the Mavericks side, it goes without saying, shout out to Mr. Derek Lively. Hitting your first 3 and then saying, yeah, I took that one from Luka Doncic. Shout out to him. But kidding aside, I mean, he's doing exactly what's asked for him. As No Java Joe would say, as Joe, our good friend Joe would say, he knows the assignment. Be a pest on defense, protect the rim, secure the defensive glass, and give your team extra opportunities. He's doing that. He's doing it well. Be available for lobs. That was a really nice lob that I saw. It was from Kyrie Irving that kind of brought the house down. And I was just really impressed by him. Now, who else got going? Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, this is a little bit of a sticky situation, in my opinion, because Tim Hardaway Jr. got himself going. He got a little hot. Fine. But from what I'm viewing, until now, he a little bit of a can we really have him out there? Can we really have him out there? He's just someone who defensively was kind of getting exposed. The Celtics were taking advantage of him, and he really needed shots. He really needs to find a rhythm, which he got into really quickly. Particularly in that fourth. So finishing 5 of 7 for the game. Can that translate? For his sake, I hope so. So again, getting those extended minutes, getting a little extra runway certainly can't hurt. And he knows, just as we all know, that he won't get that option. He won't get that opportunity to take 7 threes, more likely than not, if it's close. But still, good for him. Got himself going. I hope it continues. Dante Exum is another player. Particularly, I don't know why Luka Doncic, maybe it's Doncic, maybe it's Jason Kidd, maybe it's the team. I don't know. I feel like Doncic could take the ball up less. It's not really needed. And I wouldn't mind Dante Exum getting a couple more minutes, particularly if he's defending well. And by that, as a perimeter player, is it hard to beat you off the dribble? Are you making things tough? And are you communicating well, getting the switch well? You're going to get scored on, especially if Tatum decides to post you up down low. Fine, we can live with that. But mainly, I want someone else, mainly him if he's in there. Wouldn't mind Irving, but I want someone else other than Doncic carrying up the ball more times than not. That's just how I view things. But other than that, Maxi Kleber looked better. Defensively has been my biggest issue with him. He knows, just like we all know, that he's not going to be able to have the luxury of getting into a rhythm with his shot. But he knows his role in the offense. and his job is basically to just be ready. But he looked better moving defensively, so as did Doncic. So really glad to see him kind of get himself going on that end of the court. And then one final thing I'd like to touch on, and I think this is being overlooked, but we keep saying Mavs in 7. And I have been unapologetic about this. It takes moments, it takes a lot to win a championship, but you can usually pinpoint moments. So off the top of my head, LeBron James, the chase down block on Iguodala, for example, really stands out to me. Where if that's called a goaltend, or if Iguodala makes it, that easily turns the tide. So I wonder if we are going to look back and say the same about it was about half. Yeah, it was about halfway through the second. Luka Doncic slips, fumbles the ball, and Kyrie Irving makes a hustle play to the corner, stays in bounds, is able to find Doncic, and they get the and one. Now at that point, the game, Dallas was in control. But I'm playing the what if game now. If Doncic simply loses the ball out of bounds and the Celtics come back and hit a 3, it's then a 12-point game. And I think it was 15 points. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a 15-point game at that point. So if Doncic loses the ball and Irving is not able to track it back, or he's not aware to track it back and it simply goes out of bounds, Celtics come back, hit a 3, it's then a 12-point game. Doncic is mad because he feels like he got fouled. He takes himself out of it a little more mentally, and we see something of a repeat of game 3. If when Dallas wins this in 7, I think that needs to be considered one of the moments / turning points of this series. And obviously, if Boston goes on to win in either games 5, 6, or 7, then obviously it will be a footnote in history. In terms of why did this one guy on YouTube in a red hat talk about this for 2-3 minutes straight? But those are the kind of special moments that you need from your superstar players, and B, are unappreciated at the time. And so I'm really looking forward. I can't wait to see how the rest of this series unfold. Mavs in 7 is still alive. We are still chanting for it. We are still rooting for it. And when it happens, that moment, it's around minute 7 of the second quarter in game 4. That Kyrie Irving save to Doncic after he lost the ball. He's on the floor. When he's on the floor, Irving saves it. Doncic gets up, gets the and one bucket down low. That, in my view, in my estimation, based on what we know now, based on what we're seeing up to this point, will be, for me at least, the clear cut turning point of this series. That's all the time we have for now. We have a lot going on today. Scoutcast_Media Hub. We will be on that show around 3:15. Then we're back here 4 p.m. And then we will be on another YouTube channel. Details TBD, to be discussed, to be determined, to be released around 5 p.m.